Karen will come up.
Okay.
So Carolyn, it hasn't been that he actually
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Go.
All right. Morning. Isn't it a lovely day out there today? If you're a duck. Call the meeting to order. Executive Committee, Tuesday, October 24th. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tripp? Mr. Washington? Mr. Legess? Mr. Vickery? Mr. Olthoff? Mr. Hess? Mr. McConnell? Mr. Scott? Mr. Snipes? Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Ms. Weber? Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. No public comment today. No presentations. Approval of minutes, August 22nd and September 26th. The motion to approve. Mr. Burns, second. Mr. Olthoff, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Moving on, legislative. Mr. Lear, do you have anything for us today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislature's not been in session, of course, so there's no legislative action. I will be attending the UCCI educational seminar that's coming up this weekend. There's a reception on Friday night, and then the educational seminars on Saturday morning.
Okay.
That's
Just
all.
curious, what's the general topic of this time? Did they give you an overview or?
I did not receive an agenda in terms of topic.
Okay, I didn't see one either, and that's why I was curious. I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Let me check that off. Appointments. Back to the future here. We're looking at County Board District Number 6. You will. This is an appointment of Raymond Fairfield to fill the unexpired term of David Duda for County Board District 6. I first need a motion to approve. Mr. Seroy, second. Mr. Hess. You'll see inside your packet that I have a certified copy of the map on where this gentleman lives. It's become a necessity, and so we're going to do it that way for as long as I'm around. So I can't have to happen what happened to Mr. Duda ever happen again. So it's not only embarrassing for me personally, but for the county, and nobody deserves to have that happen. So I guess looking over the qualifications, he's obviously not here today, but did anyone, we met on the political side, did an interview, talked to him extensively. So if anybody has any questions about his qualifications. He's a former chief in the Sheriff's Department. We have somebody who has both negotiated for labor and for management. So we have a nice addition to our negotiating team that understands the inner workings of both the public safety side of things and is committed to that, but also understands the financial constraints we work under. So I thought it was a good replacement for Mr. Duda. So that being said, any other questions? I guess all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. Information Services, Mr. Duval. And before we get started, I do have one pressing question that has been really we've been talking about. What's up with the green tape on all the?
That's what I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't supposed to peel it off?
No, please, though. I was going to make it white, but we ran out of the tape, so hopefully you can see the marks. Sorry that I'm going to have to look down here because I just wrote it down this way. What I attempted to do was address the issue that I noticed that, was it last month, where you had the sound cut out in one of the meetings for a brief time. So we've had that happen before, but when we come after the meeting and try to replicate it, we can't replicate it. So what I've begun to do is slowly, in phases, in a cost-effective manner, I'm going to start replacing parts of the 20-plus-year-old system. What I did first was replace the 20-year-old amplifier with a like model, but it's double the wattage on there. What I had to do was actually research the type of system we have, because it's not a standard PA system. It's actually, this is irrelevant to you, but it's called a high voltage or a 70-volt music system. It's basically, for those of you who remember this, it's basically a Muzak or elevator music system. It's not designed to be a PA system. The benefit that it is it allows you to have a lot of speakers that'll cover a lot of area. The downfall of that is we've got 22 speakers, they're low volume, lower output speakers. So when you try to make it louder so people can hear, they start to distort.
Mm-hmm.
They were never designed to be that close to mics. You make them louder, the mic picks it up, you start this feedback chain, and that's where it's nearly impossible to balance it into the system.
Mm-hmm.
So once I found out what it is, I had to research. I didn't know any of this stuff. Now I know more than I care about, but I think it'll help us go forward with the system. So I replaced the amplifier. One of the issues with the speakers is they're also 20 years old, but they're not just speakers. Each on a system like this is you send the signal out into high wattage or voltage, and then each speaker has its own transducer on it, which steps it down. The problem with that is that's 20-something years old too, and it's not one or two. There's 22 of them, and they're not great quality as it is. What they should have did when they first did the system was actually, that's the downward firing, that's okay, except that it's not pointing at your ears, so it's always difficult to hear, is they should have had 2 or 3 ones that are horizontally firing on the side, so they're going at your ears and you actually could hear, and then you can increase the wattage on those, or the voltage, which in effect is the wattage, much easier to hear, because it would be coming to you. So phase 1 for me, I replaced the amplifier. Phase 2, and I have them, is on the sides I'm going to add a minimum of 3 speakers that'll face at you, and there'll be a higher output. I'm going to try to tie into the existing system, but at some point I'd like to add 3 more on top of that in a later phase. I'm trying to do these so we don't have to increase the budget. Mm-hmm. All this will cost approximately what one at a time, the cost of me replacing an older computer. So if I do it in phase, we don't really see it that much.
Are we talking like these little small Bose type speakers?
No, well, it's more like the ones you would see. They look like this, but they're not, because they actually also have to have the transducer in them. They look like the speaker that you would have, like if people that have on a patio on a speakers, maybe 6x9 type of. That's what they'll do. We're going to hang them from the wood mount from there. Where we ultimately would like to have them, we already have TVs, so they're not the easiest thing to replace, but it's really our only option.
So there's no feedback concerns with them being adjacent to or behind the microphones?
Well, the benefit will be is they won't be faced at the microphones. They'll be coming from the side. Our benefit, our ears are on the side of our head, so that should actually be going directly to you. What I ultimately wanted to do was put 2 speakers here. Well, they would be firing right into, and they're louder in there. So I'm going to put one there, one about mid-size, and then one back there. See how that covers. If it's not sufficient, in a later phase, we'll put 3 on the other side. All this requires you to balance the system, because if you don't balance the system, you'll blow the amp, which makes you, then you're dead in the water. You got to rewire everything at that point. So it's a complicated system that they actually have. It's working, but it was never designed to do how they were using it. It can be modified like this. From my research, this is the modification they should have did. All right, you can have the downward firing, just make sure you have voice quality speakers for the section when you need to do PA items. So I'm trying to do all that, make sure we stay within cost so I don't have to come back to you. So we're not going to just go and do everything. We'll do it over time. I've replaced some of the microphones because one of the microphones seems to be failing. I'm going to keep testing those, and as they fail, the microphones are between 125 to 200, so they're not cheap either. But again, we will do them as we hear the sound lessen instead of just replacing all of them, because that's a lot of microphones.
Now, do we have the capability to having microphones that have extended articulating arms? Because these are kind of short, and I don't know how the board feels. If we're doing it, you're doing a lot of this.
Well,
And
here,
instead of having it be a little bit.
before we go there, these are actually the best mics you can buy. So it's not the microphones.
I'm talking
So,
about the articulating arm. The arm itself, because it's the length of it. If you go to the sheriff's department, the length of that arm is much longer, and it's much easier to get that right up to where you.
well, if you notice at the sheriff's center, the sound's worse there than it is here. As if you listen to videos or in the room, it's worse there. But here, that's where the tape comes in. This is human error. It's not the microphones. That's why you have the tape there. If you look on there, the tape closest to you, that's where your mouth's supposed to be. Where you see the tape farthest for you, that's where the head of the microphone. What traditionally you've been doing, and we probably should have thought about this a long time ago, was put marks. This is the same as if you went to a studio or something, they put marks and say, this is where, because that's what it is. There's no way beyond that. That's what the system is designed to do. So I thought, well, instead of me just telling you, why don't I put something there that gives you an idea? So what ends up happening, what used to happen is we'd do that. Well, I just did it. So we all do it. That's the distance that all of these mics, regardless where you're going, that's the prime distance that they're designed to be. So when you lean back, as you can hear, it drops off dramatically. When you get closer, you can hear yourself, but you're distorting the signal. So everything gets worse that way. And to be honest, you don't really have to overthink about it. If you put your elbows or your forearms on there, you're within the distance. If you bend this down to here, you're within the distance. It's just, so now you have marks that if you're doing that and you can't hear, it's human error at that point. Why I wanted to do that first is before we spend any more money on more expensive systems, let's correct those things that we can do that cost us nothing, then move forward with the what we have to do and keep the costs controlled. Does that make sense for you?
I'd still like to take a look at longer articulated arms, because in my case, oh, that's about as close as I'm getting. Up here, it's a problem for us.
No.
Because
So,
I'm doing like this. Hey, Diane, how you doing? You know,
well, but here's the problem is what you're thinking is you have a new mic. You're actually way louder than you've been before. You were the failing mic.
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
So
symbolic.
you're way louder
That's
now than
symbolic.
you think.
Yeah, exactly.
So
The failing mic.
You're
That's a
noti-
nickname. Yeah, it should be your name.
you're noticeably louder today back there.
Yeah,
If
I can
you-
tell it's picking me up over here. A lot,
Yeah,
a lot
so
better.
you
Yeah.
you can do that. Now, if you're back here, it still picks you up. I'm just saying that's the prime distance. It just drops off dramatically as you get far away from that. And no, you can't extend these. This is that 200. This is, you have to go to a different mic. That, if you want, now I'm going to have to come back and ask for funds at that, because it's going to be dramatically. We can do that.
Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin, you give us an awful lot of detail. I think it might help me if I review and understand what you're saying. You're saying that the microphone should be right above the one tape,
Right.
and our mouth should be
It's pretty simple.
where the second tape is.
So you
Yeah,
don't wanna pull
I
this-
think all of you have gotten that,
You
right?
don't wanna pull this closer? Like I can go way past the first tape.
All right, here's the basis on everything. Don't overthink it. There's one. Get in that general area. Get your mouth in that general. You're not going to get it perfect. Don't do this. Just
Wow.
so
This is being recorded.
that was the other one that I replaced, because the two that were having problems was that one was starting to cut out and this was starting to cut out. So And luckily, the louder mics are actually the little less expensive ones. But if you want something specifically for you, now remember,
If
the
it's
other
fixed,
people are
we'll
going to be
find it.
louder.
Yeah. Well, there was one other question I had. What's the timeline? How quickly are we going to do this? Like by mid next year, we're going to.
No, we're gonna actually. I'm trying to do it so I don't have to come and ask you for money. So there really isn't one. And that's not true. I already did phase one, which was replace the amp. The next phase, which I don't want to say officially, is because we're going to feel it out and see where it goes, is within the next month. I would hope to mount those speakers together. But as you notice right now, everybody can hear everybody. Well, I don't want to overspend for something if it's not going to do, because I know you didn't want us to come back to ask for additional funds. Otherwise, I say to just redo the system. We don't have.
Sure. Mr. Hess?
Thank you, Chairman. Kevin, the only thing I'd like to have you consider is if you take this side of the room and you average out the age, then you take that side of the room and average out the age. You might want to put the speakers over here first.
I actually was going to do that. That just gave me something to mount to. That it's kind of that weird wall that's got that surface on there, and I gotta ask Brian what I can do on that side or not. I already have the speakers, so. And up here, it does make a difference. I'll try to have the people to speak. You addressed something I didn't know. I'm glad you told me that. A taller, bigger person, it's harder to get to that issue. So these are for the marks for the people. So if you hear people and you can't hear them, you want everybody to get within their area, but don't overthink it. So,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So you mentioned it's a Muzak player. That one's gone? Or that's still
No, it's the same.
it's the same one? So can we have theme music for people as they walk up?
It's-
You know, like you can have your own, you know, turn it on, turn it off.
It's the exact same model. It's not the model. It's the higher model. I doubled the voltage or the wattage on the amp, but it's the same make because I needed to feed into the same wiring. When I looked at other amplifiers, I had to wire everything. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm getting over
I
my
gotcha.
head at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions?
I don't have any problem with the mic.
or yeah.
No? Says the man who doesn't need a mic for everyone to hear him. Yeah.
One last thing though, I'm not guaranteeing that the sound won't cut out because my assumption was that it was the amp. If it's the speakers that are doing, until at that point, then we'll have to put all new speakers around the side and just take them out of the loop. I'm trying to just make use of what we have. So I don't know one thing
Right.
fixed it.
Well, technology is much better than it was before, and you probably, those side fill speakers could do a lot as far as the overhead. They may be relics at this point, you know. So yeah, we'll deal with it.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much. Moving on, Health Department, Mr. Vivas, you have anything today? John? Okay. Is there any questions? Does he need to come up? Does anyone have anything for the Health Department? Okay, moving on then. Thank you. Schools, Dr. Murphy, nothing from schools today.
Yes.
We do have the motion to put on the quarterly report on file. Motion, Mr. Jess, second, Mr. Lear, all those in favor? Those opposed? Moving on, Veterans Commission, Mr. Roof isn't here. Mr. Tansky, do you have a report? Sorry, no theme music yet. We're working on it, so.
You're playing it here, though. I'm going to play it from my office. Just open that door.
The reports in the packet.
So need a motion to approve the report in the packet. Mr. Olthoff, second, Mr. Washington, all those in favor? Those opposed? Good morning.
Good morning. So just a couple things off of Michael's report since it was September 26th and we're way on to October. We do have 3 participants in our court now. We did accept another one that was under consideration. And on our bus, we still don't know when we're getting it, but I can tell you last month, I think he reported that we just put in like $1,200 in repairs in it and we should be good for a while. And that very next Wednesday, he had to drive the bus and he broke the back axle. So it was out of commission for 2 weeks. So our riders' participation is probably down, but hopefully now it's fixed and I won't ever drive, so I can say that. So, but other than that, I think we're, our homeless vets, I can tell you, we've really been up on that. We've been having the VA homeless coordinator come down every Tuesday recently, and the Catholic Charities SSVF person come in regularly. 2 female homeless vets that we're working with right now. One of them is a family of 5, and there is one other family of 5, but it's a husband and wife. Unusual trend upward right now. I'm not for sure what's causing it, or where it's coming from, but I honestly haven't seen this many since I've been here. So working on that. We are starting something new today in the office. We're calling it Homeless Tuesdays. The VA and Catholic Charities SSVF people will be here one Tuesday a month, and we will do nothing but work with our homeless people that day. We'll sit down as a group and work with them and give them every opportunity to get whatever assistance they need. So, and that starts officially today. So it'll be probably the last Tuesday or second to last Tuesday every month. So any questions?
Mr. Olthoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do they work, this is probably, anyway, do they work with them to try and secure employment?
They do not specifically, but we have an Illinois Department of Employment Security rep on Fast Dial. His name is Jim, and he works out of the North Extension of KCC. They have actually 2 vet reps in there. One works with the vets and one works with the employers. So we do have that coordination. We have not invited them in at this point. Unfortunately, I can tell you that the one family of 5, the husband is disabled and he is not going to be able to obtain employment. And because the kids are a little bit younger, the mom's probably not going to be able to, because they probably couldn't afford daycare. So.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it. Take care. Gosh, pushy. Personnel, HR issues. Lynn Mackett. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to spend just a little bit of time, just to kind of remind you the time of year we're going into. By the time you meet next month, we'll already be in our insurance informational meetings throughout the county. And I do ask the board, goes into Paylocity at this time, not until December. And just check your beneficiaries in the core life insurance. And then if you want to elect anything, you'd have to do it between December 1st and December probably 11th this year. So if you need help, we're up there in administration. We'd be more than happy to walk you through it, but I just want to remind you so we don't have to follow up a little bit later. We will put informational packets in your mailboxes or mail them out to you just so you have an idea what's going on too for everyone in the county. But that begins probably right after county board meeting next month. We'll start our meetings and we'll be going for that week and maybe into the following week. So that's all I wanted to do is just make sure you were aware you got to go in this year.
Mr. Olthoff.
Thank you, Chairman. Is there a possibility of getting supplemental on United Healthcare instead of Blue Cross Blue Shield, or is that more expensive?
That particular entity we don't deal with anymore. That's still handled through our old benefit consultant. So
Okay.
I don't think that's something we'll look at probably this year.
And we can do the sign up if we're not here. We can do it on the internet.
You can do it online 24/7.
I don't know.
I have a question for the people that are not part of the finance committee, which there's a few that aren't, I believe, that aren't on finance, but what was our renewal? Just to explain to the executive what we're kind of facing on the insurance side of things, make sure everybody knows. It was around
27.9, so a 28% increase.
28% increase was our renewal. And because our experience was what, 110 roughly?
Yeah, very close.
Yeah.
About 107%
Yeah.
loss ratio. So yeah.
So they're we're not a kind of group that companies make money off of. So they'll figure out a way to make money, obviously. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Thank you. This 27% was with United?
Yes.
Yes.
And what about Blue Cross? Was there an increase there too?
Yes, the plans varied up and down. That's about right now at a 19%. But we also have to, they don't handle the HRA, so we'd have to spend money to have another administrative, like we did before, take care of the HRA part where United Health is all in one.
So we're talking $400,000. That's not a little bit of money.
No.
And then what that does is, I mean, you know how limited money is, finances are. So this is a real problem. We've got to work, there's some changes coming. We just have to, we have another meeting. We're looking at all different types of angles. But for the really rich benefit our employees get, you know, as I was talking to Lynn, we figured out over the past 3 years since we did the HRA change, we have gotten 58% as far as renewals total, and it's went up 6% from the things that we've done to mitigate those costs. We've run to the end of that road as far as what we can do for our employees to keep their costs down. Now we're starting to look at the benefits themselves because there's really no movement in what you can do. So we have their best interest at heart. This isn't a really, you know, the county's hurting, so we're going to make the employees pay for it, but $400,000. I mean, it's there. So, Mr. Olthoff?
Thank you, Chairman. If you spread this over all of the employees of the county to absorb the 400,000, what would that amount to per person?
I have not gone that far in the figuring of the premiums yet.
It's like a
Since we're still
27%
playing with
increase
it.
on what they pay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a 27% increase on what each plan pays, not per member, but whoever the billed person is. So
what are they paying into the program?
It's the employees do 75% of the premium. And
well, we do.
Or excuse me,
Employees do 25.
we do 75%
25,
and the employees do
25.
25.
I guess, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you went to 50%, what would that mean?
You always,
Yeah.
Well, we would save 25% over what the renewal is. Well, actually 50% over the renewal. So, I mean, which is 25% lower than where we're at now. But that's every basic bargaining unit out there.
I know.
It's just, yeah. So, and we're in negotiations with all the bargaining units. So we're trying to make them aware of what's coming, you know, and while we don't expect anything to change on those percentages, we're trying to mitigate that, maybe not for the current members of those units, but going forward. So while we're not going to get into negotiating here at this juncture, it's a problem, not just for today, but for 10 years down the road. Mr. Snipes.
Every year.
See if it works.
There it is. I almost reserve saying this, but taking off the union hat and just looking at not changing the employee benefit that for the employees that work for us, but we tend to pay 75% for spouse and children that are not employees of the county, but they are related to the employees that work for the county by way of being a spouse. And to maintain that and to go to a 50% for families and children would be a bargaining tool when you're looking at what we have to pay, because money is being paid out anyway. And I don't know if the strategy, I know everybody say you don't change this, and I understand that. But the other benefit that we give for when we look at those numbers, I believe that we need, when you're sitting at a union table, and I'm sure you probably have done that, but looking at that 75% and that we're paying versus that 25% that you're paying means that if I have to really throw in a lot of other benefits, I need to probably look at not just the benefit that we're giving you, but probably the benefit that we're giving the family whether it's a spouse or whether it's children, we need to kind of look at that in the bargaining process when we are negotiating, because that's kind of heavy, and some jobs don't offer it, and some do it at 50% or whatever. And we have been generous for the family. And then there's some that say, we pay for you, but you're gonna have to pay 100% if you want the family to, because, a shared benefit, 50-50. So I know that we've been generous in the past, don't wanna raise the eyebrows of anyone, but that cost needs to be on that table as the whole benefit. I might see a person making $30,000, but by the time you add in the benefits that we're paying or whatever, it is more astronomical as far as that's concerned.
Sure. No, I appreciate the comment. It's tough because we can't necessarily sit here and bargain with units at this. It's illegal, frankly. But I will say that, no, I know, but it's the things that are currently on the table we can't really get into. But I will say that it's not unknown, those costs that we're dealing with. And, we are obliged to have the plan open for children. And in some cases, we're obliged to have the spouse if they don't have qualifying insurance elsewhere. But by almost every measure in all of our existing contracts, not all, but most, we have an obligation to offer family for the 75% funding level also. So, yeah.
The position that I'm looking at is that if I went to 50, that means that would make your outer cost at another additional 25%.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. I'm just looking at not so much what we are, but I'm just looking at if I move this here,
right,
basically based upon the addition, I'm offering it to you and I'm paying 75%. So if I pay 50%, if that addition was to come out your pocket, and if I keep it the same or whatever, most folks will say, let's keep it the same, and versus me having to pay. So I'm just saying a strategy.
Mr. Vickery?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those scenarios have been addressed. And of the 5 contracts, only one is not settled in arbitration or can be settled in arbitration. One of the bargaining units, if you don't, they have the right to strike. The other 4 go to arbitration. And apparently, I think one of them is headed in that direction right now. We've been in federal mediation, and those terms of 50-50 have been discussed. Okay, so, but that's about all we can say.
Right.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I understand that I'm a union member, and I do negotiate a lot of things. But one thing that individuals are afraid of when they say arbitration, and they want to run the other way. But sometimes, in my position, and I believe when I was on this board, we took a position and we won also in arbitration. So I'm not afraid of arbitration. What I'm looking at is fairness, equity, and the best interest of the taxpayers' dollar to the people, and then to realize this is the total money that you're getting. Just don't look at your $34,000. Look at what's all included in this $34,000. I'm sure that's what you did, but I'm just saying.
Mr. Vickery, you do have the floor, though. I'm sorry, Mr. Snipes, he has the floor.
The total cost today for family coverage is about $17,000, and if it goes up 25%, you're talking $21,000 or $22,000 per employee for group health insurance. And we're cognizant of that in negotiations. We've discussed all that, and by the way, I have a withdrawal card from Local 588.
Right.
Okay, the auto industry. So. I've been down both sides of their tracks. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I just want to make sure this committee was aware, because it is a very high level situation that we're going to have to deal with, and we'll talk about it more in finance tomorrow. So thank you, Lynn. I didn't mean to pull the pin on that hand grenade, but we have to. Moving on to resignations, appointments, and reappointments. I want to do the first one separately. Because we'd like one of the members of this committee to be able to vote on everything else that's on the agenda for administrative issues. So I need a motion to approve Carol Weber to the Juvenile Justice Council. Mr. Burns, second. Mr. Washington. Any discussion on that? Does anyone want qualifications or to interview the candidate? Oh, okay. Need a motion to approve. We got it. I'm sorry. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Now I need a motion to combine appointment of Mel Blanchett to the Ethics Commission, appointment of James C. Schoaf to the River Conservancy District Board, reappointment of James Carter to the River Conservancy District Board, reappointment of Martin Graff Jr. to the Spring Creek Drainage District, reappointment of Dennis Johnson to the Moments and Yellowhead Drainage District number 1, and that's it. So motion to combine and approve, Mr. Hess, second, Mr. Vickery. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? All right, moving on. Announcing a few openings. One opening on the Kankakee County Board of Health. 2 openings on the Kankakee County Regional Planning Commission. 6 openings on the Board of Examiners of Appeals, engineer, architect, commercial contractor, residential contractor, electrician, and plumber. And I'm going to address something on that in a moment. 1 opening on the Ethics Commission. We did have 1 person apply for the that was a Democrat, and so we have to make sure that we have equal representation, so it can be a nonpartisan person or a Republican, or as far as the what do you say, official political parties in Illinois. Gotcha. So we need to make sure that it has to be balanced on those lines. So just let me know if you know where the applications are that are on the website. If somebody's interested in that, we have to fill 1 more position. And then 1 opening on the X-Line Creek Drainage District. Mr. McConnell had asked about the Board of Examiners and Appeals. He couldn't be here today. As I talked to the state's attorney's office, a commercial contractor or a residential contractor can be an HVAC contractor. So it is addressed. So it's not like we're excluding HVAC. One of those 2 positions can be an HVAC contractor. So we'll talk about it more. I know Mr. McConnell would like to discuss that, but it's not like we're excluding anybody. Those are under those umbrellas. So if there's an opening, then we would obviously entertain anybody that's in the contractor area, especially HVAC. So it is part of the county code. So we would have to amend the county code to make it specific to HVAC. And I would just say there'd be a consideration for this committee. If Pat wants to bring it up, it's his purview as a board member. We would just have to consider, then maybe we have to be very specific on all the other types of trades that are represented within that. So we could have a 20-person committee at some point. So I just wanted to mention that you know, it may come up again, and just be thinking about it. And if you would have any questions, benefits, drawbacks, all those types of things. So, beyond that, resolution regarding cut in road funding. Does anybody have any questions about that? Do you see it in your packet? This situation came up because basically the state said, we're not going to give you money we've been giving you for years. And this is the start. I don't want to say enough is enough, because I don't know that we're necessarily going to get the entire General Assembly to hear our plea, but I don't think we'd be doing our job if we just didn't tell them that we're not liking the way it's going. So it's more like a letter to a resolution to our elected officials, our in the House and in the Senate, to, hey, you know, this needs to stop. Stand up for us. You know, as you push more out of Springfield down to us, and we're tax capped. I mean, we're not growing money on trees here, so it's just the opposite. So this really hurts our ability to serve, especially in the rural areas, the roads. Mr. Washington.
We're also not home rule. What we've seen coming down the road over these years, these last few years, is this very thing, that the state is looking for other ways to defray their costs by taking more money from the counties and from the municipalities, rather than supplying more to the counties and to the municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally agree. And it's also, while we still have to provide the same services by mandate, that's the problem. Is if we could, yeah, I mean, we don't want the roads to go to heck, do we? I mean, but that's really what this means is that that's 1 less project that we're able to do, or 2 less projects we're able to do. And now you compound that times 10, 15 years, sooner or later, something's going to give.
Roads are 80,000-pound roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they made that change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without
Mr. Vickery.
funding.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to adopt that resolution.
Is there a second, Mr. Legess? Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? No other information I have at this time. Any old business? You have new business? Mr. Byrne.
I just want to take this time to acknowledge Chairman and Representative Parkhurst for their bid on the Amazon. It's nice and refreshing to see someone making an effort to, bring some business here. So it's out of the box thinking and innovative, and just want to make that acknowledgement. And it's good to see. We've had a lot of negative vibes, you can say, in the county. I mean, if anyone's on social media, it's all you hear, and it's good to see that there's progress. And if it's not Amazon, hopefully it's someone else.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That's what we're here for. Yes, sir.
Yeah, before we adjourn or whatever, have we considered the soft drink tax?
Did you have something, Mr. Legess?
No, I want to make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second for that grand notion of a motion? Thank you, Mr. Lear. All those in favor? Those opposed? Have a good day. Stay